Living in my neighborhood for just over 2 years, last year marked an incident that sent shivers down my spine. Residing alone in a friendly community, I've developed connections with some of my neighbors. On a typical evening after work, I strolled to the end of my driveway to collect the mail. It was then that I spotted Darren, a neighbor across the street, 3 doors down, and waved back at his friendly gesture. Intrigued by a desire to catch up with him, I made my way over. Our conversation, usually lively, turned into an unexpectedly extended dialogue, almost an hour. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the neighborhood into darkness, Darren and I chatted, standing a few feet into his yard. While cars occasionally passed by, our street was typically serene. Parting ways, I headed back to my house, and Darren retreated inside. Approaching my driveway's end, I noticed an unfamiliar figure at my front door. A man, clad in a sweatshirt and jeans, stood in the dim light. It felt odd, especially in the darkness. Instead of approaching immediately, a strange intuition held me back. I stood there, watching. After around 30 seconds, he left my front step, but instead of turning around, he traversed my front yard and vanished around the side of the house, almost reaching my backyard. A sense of unease crept in, urging me to enter my house through the front door. Contemplating whether to investigate the backyard, I opted against it. Indoors, I headed towards the back of the house to glance out the windows overlooking the quiet backyard. Yet, the mysterious man eluded my sight. Everything seemed serene and ordinary. Multiple windows failed to reveal his presence, leading me to assume he had departed through someone else's backyard, a peculiar occurrence, but it appeared he was no longer around. Returning my focus to the living room, I switched on the TV and settled on the couch. But within a minute, the tranquil ambience shattered. The unmistakable sound of glass breaking echoed from the back of my house, instantly jolting me into high alert. Without a second thought, I leaped from the couch, sprinted out of the room, and ascended the stairs to my bedroom. Faint echoes of someone entering my house accompanied my swift retreat. Locked in my bedroom, I grappled with the disbelief of the unfolding events. The intruder, presumably the man from my front step, made his way into the living room, gradually approaching the stairs. My heart raced as I summoned all my courage, yelling at the top of my lungs. A fervent declaration that I possessed a weapon and had already alerted the police reverberated through the tense air. Desperation underscored every word, a plea to deter the intruder. Simultaneously, I dialed the police. Uncertain if my loud proclamations had scared him off, I anxiously awaited the arrival of law enforcement. Though the sounds of movement persisted downstairs, an eerie silence eventually descended. Unsure of the intruder's whereabouts, I waited in suspense until the distant wail of sirens pierced the stillness. The police arrived, and I cautiously emerged from my bedroom. Despite an extensive search inside and outside, the intruder had vanished without a trace. The aftermath revealed significant damage to my house and the unsettling loss of several belongings. While distressed by the violation, a profound sense of relief washed over me. I emerged physically unscathed. The man was later apprehended, and some of my belongings were recovered. Nevertheless, the haunting echoes of that night lingered, and a shattered window became a haunting reminder of an encounter that still sends chills down my spine. Two months ago, an intriguing incident unfolded in my life. I reside in a tranquil neighborhood and frequently indulge in nighttime strolls. As a nocturnal individual, the warmer climate of my locality makes it preferable to walk in the coolness of the night, particularly during that season. Despite the unconventional nature of late-night walks, it has been my routine for quite a while. My typical route involves navigating the neighborhood for around 30 minutes to an hour. There's a sidewalk that spans across all the streets, and encountering fellow pedestrians during these late hours is a rarity. While I don't embark on nightly walks every day, it's a ritual I observe about 3 or 4 times a week. One night, around 10 p.m., I set out for a stroll. I walked to the end of my street where it intersects with another and continued down that residential, peaceful street. Approximately 10 minutes later, as I approached the end of the street, I planned to turn around. That's when I heard a noise reminiscent of a car approaching from behind. I turned around to witness a car with no headlights on, approaching at an unusually slow pace. Unfazed, I continued walking, expecting it to pass by. However, after a few moments, it didn't. Glancing back, the car was closer but still trailing behind. The sidewalk in this area was dimly lit, with fewer streetlights instilling a sense of unease. As another minute passed, I remained on the sidewalk, and the car showed no signs of passing me. It was gradually closing in. Moving at less than 5 miles per hour, it was evident the car was trailing me, even though I was walking at a brisk pace. Eventually, the car aligned with me, and I hesitated to glance over. It was an older-looking, dark gray, 4-door sedan. The driver, a man, wore a black ski mask, intensifying my suspicion. Continuing my walk, he matched my speed. After about 30 seconds, I decided to halt and turn around, opting to head back home. Surprisingly, the car stopped as well. As I retraced my steps, I noticed the car turning around. Sensing danger, I knew I needed to escape, realizing I couldn't outrun the car. The car caught up with me again, appearing to pull over. Walking in front of a house, I entered the driveway, reaching the front door. I knocked, hoping someone would answer despite the late hour. Fortunately, a woman answered, and I explained the unsettling situation, pointing to the car following me. Suddenly, the car on the side of the street sped away, screeching its tires. After a brief discussion, I felt relieved in the company of someone else. Assuring the woman that I could make it home safely, I left her house. Back on the sidewalk, I cautiously scanned the surroundings, not spotting the car. Hastening my pace, I carefully observed, ensuring the car was no longer in sight. Eventually, I made it back to my street, and as I approached my house, about 100 feet from my driveway, I saw the car in the distance, moving at a slow pace. I sprinted as fast as possible, cutting through my front yard to reach the door swiftly. Unlocking it quickly, I slammed the door shut behind me and looked out the window. The car crept by at an extremely slow speed, passing my house and eventually driving away. The relief of being safely indoors was overwhelming. I couldn't discern if the driver observed me entering or knew I lived there, and I sincerely hoped not. Since that incident, I haven't encountered that car again, and have refrained from late-night walks. The identity and intentions of the driver remain a mystery, but I am grateful to have distanced myself from the unknown threat. A couple of years back, there was this incident that took place. I live alone in a cozy little house with an almost acre-sized backyard, providing ample space at the rear. My companion in this solitude is Bonnie, a beagle with a penchant for walks around the neighborhood and occasional backyard outings for nature's call. One night, as darkness descended, I was in the living room when I noticed Bonnie heading towards the back door. Her intent gaze and a scratch at the door indicated a pressing need to go outside. It was a routine to take her out before bedtime, so I slipped on my shoes and fetched her leash. Bonnie, ever excited, responded to the jingle of her leash, and we ventured into the backyard. The backyard, adorned with thick trees and bushes, housed Bonnie's designated area, not far from the house. Usually our nighttime excursions lasted a couple of minutes at most. However, on this night, Bonnie suddenly started barking, fixated on an area to the right where some bushes stood. Assuming it might be a squirrel or something, I tried to calm her down. Initially, I saw nothing, but moments later I noticed a man crouched down behind one of the bushes. Surprised and a bit unnerved, I attempted to stay composed, urging Bonnie to calm down. As I walked her towards the back door, she continued tugging on the leash. Opening the door, I heard movement behind us. Bonnie tried to run in that direction, tugging harder. Swiftly pulling her inside, I turned to see the man now standing about 15 feet away, approaching. I closed and locked the door, with Bonnie barking and jumping against it. Retreating to the bedroom away from the back door, Bonnie eventually calmed down. After about 10 minutes, I cautiously went to check if the man was still around. Leaving Bonnie in the bedroom, I approached the kitchen, adjacent to the back door. To my surprise, I saw the man looking through the window next to it. Alarmed, I hurried back to the bedroom, retrieved my phone, and called the police. Locked in the bedroom with Bonnie, I stayed away from the windows until the police arrived. They searched my yard extensively, both front and back, but the man had vanished by then. I never got a good look at him. All I knew was that he was white, had dark hair, and was of average build. I couldn't fathom his intentions, and to this day I wonder what he had planned. Perhaps a break-in for theft, but the uncertainty lingers. Luckily, Bonnie's vigilant barking alerted me, preventing a potential threat. In the aftermath, I became even more conscious of securing my home. It's been a few years, but the memory of that surreal experience still lingers in my mind.